Hi guys, today I'm showing you how to make and store one of the most essential ingredients in Caribbean cooking, and that is green seasoning. Now let's talk about ingredients. I'm using fresh thyme. I'm also using cilantro, but you can use cilantro as well. I'm using parsley. I'm also going to add some fresh basil, a few celery stalks, and of course scallion. For the peppers, I'm using a combination of wiri pepper and pimento peppers. And last but not least, lots of garlic. The first step is to roughly chop all of the ingredients. We're going to be using a food processor, but you can also use a blender. If you grew up in a Caribbean household, you already know that this is the secret to amazing flavor in a lot of dishes. Every family has their own version of green seasoning, but the basics are pretty much the same. It's a blend of fresh herbs, garlic, and peppers that can be used as a base for savory dishes such as stews, seafood, and rice dishes like cook-up rice. And I'm using pimento peppers because it has the flavor of a hot pepper without the heat. And this is totally up to you how spicy or not spicy you would like your green seasoning. And that's what's great about this. You adjust it to suit your taste. And this is only half of the garlic that I use. Garlic is such a flavorful ingredient, and I had to add just a little bit more. And I'm just going to place all of the ingredients into a large bowl because I do need the space on the cutting board so that I could cut up the remainder of the herbs. I don't always use basil in my green seasoning, but this time I wanted to have that punch of flavor. But what I would recommend is to use it sparingly since basil does have a super strong flavor. And this is essentially our substitute for married man pork living here in America. As you can see, this does take a little bit of time and a whole lot of chopping, but it does save time down the road having this seasoning already cut up and ready to go. I'm using cilantro, but you can also use cilantro or shadow belly, which is another very common ingredient in green seasoning. Another ingredient that the Guyanese typically use is the broadleaf thyme, but as you can see, I didn't have enough leaves on my plant, but I just wanted to show you guys I actually had this in the house all winter, and I'm so proud of the fact that it actually survived. However, I am going to use this type of thyme, and this takes a lot of work to get those tiny leaves off of the stem. And there will be some of the stem. As long as it's not the thick woodsy part of the stem, it's just fine. And now that all of my ingredients are prepped, I'm going to place this into my food processor. You can also use a blender, or you can go old school style and use a mortar and pestle. But I suspect that most of us do not have the time to do that. And because there's so much seasoning, this is going to have to be done in batches. And I'm just going to pulse it. I prefer to use my food processor because I feel as though the blender gets it completely smooth. If that's what you're going for, then you can use the blender instead of the food processor. But I do like the chunkier texture that you get when using the food processor. And as it blends, I just added a little bit more of the seasoning. And you do need a spatula to just kind of mix it up and push it down from the sides of the food processor, just so that everything blends really well. And just keep pulsing until you reach the desired consistency. Now, once this batch is done, I'm going to remove it and place it into a bowl. And that's because you don't want to overload the food processor. Once I do the second batch of seasoning, I will be mixing both batches of the green seasoning just to make sure that there's a consistency of flavor and that all of the ingredients are blended well together. Now let's talk liquids. Some people add a little splash of lime juice or vinegar, which also helps to preserve the color of the green seasoning. As green seasoning does oxidize and becomes slightly darker as it sits in the fridge, but that doesn't bother me because it does not affect the flavor. Sometimes I add a little bit of oil, but most commonly I use water, and this is just to help it blend better. And you can also add a little bit of salt. Like I said, this is something that you can customize to your own liking. Alright, now that you've got your green seasoning, it's time to store it properly so that it lasts. Freezing is the option that preserves it the longest. It can last months in your freezer. Now here's my favorite way to freeze it. Place it into an ice cube tray. Freeze it and then pop out the cubes and store them in a freezer bag. That way you can grab a cube whenever you need it. It's perfectly portioned and you can just simply mix it into your dish. Another option would be to place it into a Ziploc bag. And this works as well. It's just that you would not have the pre-portioned sizes. Place it into your Ziploc bag, squeeze out any excess air and flatten the seasoning. You're going to want to place it into the freezer just like this. That way you can just simply break off a piece once it's frozen. And you can store it for 2 to 3 weeks in an airtight container in the fridge. That way it's ready to go to use as a marinade or to stir into any of your dishes. And that's it. This is how easy it is to make a green seasoning, which is such an essential in Caribbean cooking. You have all of your essential ingredients ready to go, ready to season your meats with. Put it into any savory dish that you're making. It is super easy because you've already done the prep work ahead. And thank you for sticking around. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.